Alright, today we're going to be doing our troubleshooting test on our V5 taillights for our 2018 through 2022 Honda Accord. The V5 taillights are very similar to a number of the other taillights that we carry for the Accord as far as wiring, so this should be very easy, especially if you've watched any of the videos on our previous taillights. These are direct plug and play, so they do connect directly to the OEM harness. So this is the back of the light itself, and this is what plugs into the OEM harness. And then the second connector here is this little small one. This will connect to, there's a long cable that's inside the box that connects from this connector to the connector over in the trunk light, which you'll see in a minute when we test the trunk light on the next video. So for testing purposes, if you've got a tail light and you send us an email saying, hey, you know, like my turn signal's not working, or my brake light's not working, or the running light isn't working, or something of that nature right there, for warranty purposes, especially if there's a warranty claim, we do have to have this troubleshooting test done. This verifies if there's an issue with the light itself. And if that's the case, then we can file the claim. So to test that, we're going to be powering and grounding on this connector right here. This is the primary connector. So we're going to be doing a direct test on this. Now to do this, you will need either a power inverter like the one I have here. All the power inverter does is provides us with a positive and a negative wire connection to test the light out. Or if you do not have a power inverter, that's perfectly fine. You can use your car battery. Just think of this as your car battery and get two wires. And you're going to connect one to the negative terminal in your battery, which will replicate our negative wire here, and connect one to the positive terminal in your battery, and that will replicate our positive wire that we have here. So to test out the functionality of the lights, it's real simple. All you need to do is connect your negative wire, and we're going to connect it to the pin for the black wire. So black wire here, you can see it's the pin right there in the upper right corner. Now I'm going to connect it on the back because I have one of these little tester tools here with a little pin on the end of it. If you don't have that and you're just doing the wire, just connect it to there. So I'm just going to push it through until I touch the metal connection. There we go. And the next I'm going to take my positive wire, and we're just going to go through each of the options here. So it's real simple. So the first one we're going to go is, we're going to go with this pin up here at the top left, which is the yellow one. This should be for the turn signal. And let me make sure I've got my good ground connection. There we go. So right there, you can see as I'm touching it, there comes the turn signal. Turn signal is coming on. So that tells us the turn signal is working. The next one we're going to test is going to be the one directly below it. So the lower left-hand pin, this is going to be for the red wire. So if we look on the other side here, we can see the red wire there. This should be for our brake light. And so there's our brake light. Brake light lit up all the way. Okay, so that tells us everything's working with the brake. And the last one we're going to test is the one right next to it, the lower right-hand pin, which is for the green wire. This should be for our running light and animation. So we're going to test this out. You can see there goes the animation starting up. It goes through testing all the functions. And then, there we go. Running light will come on completely. So that tells us that the animation works correctly and the running light does work correctly. So that lets us know that for the main connector here, everything's working correctly. Now we also do have this little connector right here. This little connector again is the one that's going to connect to that long harness that will connect from this outside light over to the trunk light. This is very important because you can see here it's got a ground wire, it's got the yellow wire, which is for the turn signal, the red wire, which is for the brake, and it has the white wire for the reverse light. And why this is important is because on the factory trunk light does not have a brake or a turn signal. So it's sending the signal from here, the power signal from here, the outside light, up through this cable, up through that harness, all the way up to the trunk light. So that way the trunk light has a turn signal and a brake. And then vice versa, it's actually sending the signal for the reverse light from the trunk light down through this cable to the reverse light on here, on the outside piece. So to test and make sure that our reverse light works and the other functions on this cable works, we're going to take our ground wire and we're going to connect it to the pin for the black wire right here. You can see the little black wire. So again, I'm going to, since I've got this little tool here, I'm going to connect it through on the back side just to have a better connection. So the first one we're going to test out is we're going to test the yellow one, which is for the turn signal. Again, so I'm going to test this one right here, not the one on the very end, the one right next to it. You can see the turn signal will come on. There's the turn signal coming on. So that tells us that this outside light is going to send this signal up to the trunk light for the turn signal. So we know that part works. We're going to test the one next to it, which is the red one. This is the one right here. Tells us that the brake light's working. So you can see the brake light's working perfectly fine. Again, that tells us that this outside light piece would send the brake signal up to the trunk light without any issues. And then the last thing we're going to test is the white one. Again, this is for the reverse light. And this is very important because, again, the factory reverse light is up on the trunk light. So this cable is important because it's going to send that signal from the trunk light where the reverse light connector is, which you'll see in the other video with the trunk light piece. It's going to send that signal down here to light up that reverse light. So we're going to test it out. Just make sure our reverse light works. And you can see right there, there goes the reverse light, working perfectly fine. So what this tells us then is that this outside light piece works perfectly fine. Everything on here is working as it should, but if there was some sort of an issue, this is how we would verify there was a defect, whether it be an issue with the reverse light, the turn signal, the running light with the animation, or the brake light. This would allow us to verify if there was a problem. Today we're going to be testing the trunk light on the V5 tail light for the 2018 through 2022 Honda Accord. Now testing it is real simple. We're going to be accessing the connectors here on the back. We have 3 connectors here. The first one, the big black one, connects to the OEM harness, just like your factory tail light does. The next one here is going to connect to the reverse light connector on your factory harness. And then the last one is this little black connector. This little black connector will connect to that long harness that comes in the box that runs from the trunk light down to the exact same connector on the outside light. So that sends the signal back and forth between the outside light and the trunk light to allow the trunk light to have turn signal and brake, and to allow the outside light to have the reverse function for the light. So to test out the light, it's actually real simple. Again, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be testing out the different connections. Okay, we're going to connect our negative wire, or our black wire here, to the black ground wire. I'm going to connect it on the back, but you can connect it on the front to the pin, whichever one you want to do. Since I've got one of these little pin tools here, I'm going to connect it on the back just to get my connection better. There we go. And then we're going to connect to the 2 bottom pins here. So one pin, you can kind of see it a little bit, one is green and one is blue. Now the green one is going to be for the running light and the animation. And now the blue one should be for the European fog light, which we don't use here in the US, so you don't need to test that. That's not something that the North American models have on it. So to test out our running light, I'm going to connect my positive wire here to this pin right here in the lower right corner, which is for the green wire. Test it out. And let's see. There we go. Okay, so now I got a good connection on my ground. There goes. You can see it's going through the animation process, booting up, and then once it's done booting up, now we have just the running light staying on. So what that tells us is that the animation and the running light on the trunk light do function correctly. For the next test, we're going to test out this connection here. So this connection here is, again, the one that connects to the cable that runs from the trunk light all the way over to the outside light and feeds the signal back and forth for like the brake and for the turn signal. So to do that, we need to connect our negative wire to this little pin right here, which is for the black wire. That's the ground. Again, I'm going to do it from the back here because I've got this little pin tool here. So that gives me a good connection. And we're going to test out the yellow wire and the red wire. We don't need to test the white one because the white one's for the reverse, and the reverse's light itself is down on the outside light piece. So we're going to test the pin for the yellow one first. And you can see right there when I click on it, there goes the turn signal coming on. Turn signal is activating, so it tells me my turn signal is working correctly. The next one we're going to test is we're going to test the pin here for the little red wire. This should be the brake light. So I'm going to test that out. You see, there we go. Brake light's coming on completely. And then what that tells me is my brake light works fully. So this tells us that this trunk light functions correctly. This lets us know by testing this that the turn signal works, the brake works, the running light works, animation works. Everything works the way it should. If there were an issue with the light or one of the functions on here, this would allow us to verify the defect, and if there was a warranty claim being processed or troubleshooting being processed, we could then proceed from there with whatever the resolution was. We do hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, send us an email at info@hirevsports.com, and thank you for watching.